that I had the most bizarre dream I've ever had in my life last night. It was odd, very strange. And I was encountering these beings, and they were scaring me. They scared me, and I woke up, and I could not go back. I had to stay up. I got up at 3:30 in the morning. It was so realistic. It was so realistic that when it was over, I wasn't sure what happened.
This is wild. Did Joe Rogan just have a demonic encounter? He explains that he had the most wild and realistic dream he's ever had. And he thinks that it's more like an alien, but I think it's more like a demon. So we're gonna be getting into this.
So I was telling you before we get started that I had the most bizarre dream I've ever had in my life last night. The most realistic and most bizarre dream.
Whoa.
And it's so hard to try to explain how strange this was. But I was in some weird corridor that looked like a building but was odd. Very strange. And I was encountering these beings that looked like people but very different. They were very thin and they were slightly on the tall side. And they had big heads, like larger than normal, with larger than normal eyes. But they looked like people, and they were playful, and they were scaring me. They scared me, and then they joked around, like we were just joking around. It was the most realistic dream I've ever had in my life. And I woke up, and I could not go back. I had to stay up. I got up at 3:30 in the morning, and I just went to the gym, and I worked out for a couple hours, and I was like, what the was that? But it was very bizarre in that there was communication going on. It was like, God, I want to read into this because I know it's just a dream, but it was like, get comfortable with this.
You should read into it because it's a dream. So it doesn't make it right, but your subconscious is trying to tell you about something, and the fact that it felt very, very important means your subconscious thinks it's very, very important.
I woke up, I was tired, man. When I went to bed, I was tired. I was falling asleep watching TV. I went to bed at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, like beat down. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get some sleep. Because I had a long week, a lot of activities, workouts, this, that, the other. Tired. 3:30 in the morning, after whatever this was, woke me up so much that I just laid in bed for like another hour. And I was like, there is no way I'm going to sleep.
Wow.
I'm up forever. And then I just went and worked out. I worked out, and I was hoping I would be exhausted after I worked out and I'd be able to relax. But it was like a couple hours after that I laid down and I took a nap for an hour before I came here.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Did you see a video, I think it was yesterday, maybe it was the day before, of some Chinese robots that seem to be across on our side of the uncanny valley, that they walk with a gait that feels very human? Did you see that?
No, I haven't seen.
This is why I think it's something demonic, guys. And it probably wasn't a dream. It was something spiritual, I think. It's a possibility. And I have a video that I want to show you guys of these Native Americans not knowing what an alien was, but they showed them a picture and they're like, yeah, we see them all the time. It's crazy. In Brazil, they were asked, what is it? Have they seen any aliens? They're like, no, it's crazy. So keep on watching. I'm going to show you that.
I don't know. I've seen it a few times in the last couple of days. It sort of sounded to me like your dream might have been responsive, you know?
These things felt very organic. Whatever this was, it felt like living organic beings that were like us. There was also a water element. It was hard to understand what the water element of it was, but there was some sort of an indication that there was water and that there was a protection from you going out into the water. But if you did go into the water, there's a bunch of predators in the water. But they weren't like, it wasn't like sharks. It was reptile, like crocodile type things that were in the water, and that they had been like feeding them and keeping them calm and like keeping them away. But whatever these beings were in my dream, they were like what humans could eventually be. That's what it felt like. If it didn't feel like a person, but like, you know, like I don't feel like a monkey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was like that. It was very, very realistic. Like there was communication going on, and I was really freaked out. And they were with me to lighten me up because I was freaked out. They're like,
What?
and then they were like this, like calm down, like relax. It was so realistic. It was so realistic that when it was over, I wasn't sure what happened. Like it wasn't like, whoa, what a dream. It was like, that was different. That was a different one.
Well, I want to explore a couple things here. I think dreams.
Guys, there's dreams within the Bible. Nebuchadnezzar had a crazy, crazy dream, and then God interpreted. God uses dreams all the time to warn people, to tell people the things to come. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is a dream that has meaning, that is realistic. That makes you wonder. I'm going to read that Bible verse at the end.
Very interesting.
What do you
and
think dreams
important.
are? Let's start with that.
Sure.
What do you think's going on?
Think about the way your mind works at the level that you understand yourself, right? Your conscious mind is capable of taking an input from your eyes, computing what the dimensions of the room basically are, where the objects are, whether there's a threat somewhere. You know, if you've got something that's of a particular focus, you point the fovea of your eye at it and you get a whole lot higher resolution image. That architecture, you know how crypto made graphics card manufacturers the most important industry all of a sudden?
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, well, so the reason NVIDIA is the company that it is, I mean, never mind that there's, you know, likely overvaluation, but the reason that it's ahead of Apple in terms of, you know, its market cap and all is that the dedicated compute power necessary to make compelling visual renderings, to make video on the fly for video games, which was their stock and trade, that kind of compute turns out to be very closely related to what you want if you want to solve these very difficult math problems involved in crypto. So it was I think it was a surprise to everybody that being a specialist on this one niche, you know, video games, put you in a position where suddenly this became important for other things. But basic point is, if you think about your mind as having something like a graphics card in it, right? What is that graphics card doing? Well, it's sort of like a graphics card in reverse. It's processing the incoming information so that you can act in real time. You know, when you're fighting, you can understand what your opponent is doing, anticipate their actions, and all of that. That is an amazing piece of hardware, right? It would be stupid not to use it when your eyes are offline, right? When your eyes are closed because your eyes are built for the day and during the night you're going to close them rather than go out and get yourself in trouble in the dark. You've got this amazing processor, and it is capable of running through practice of various kinds. And my hypothesis for what's going on here is that basically you, as a creature with a very complex set of hazards and opportunities in your life, use nighttime when you're not doing productive work to get ahead on challenges that you may face in one way or another. Sometimes those challenges are warnings about, you know, defects, you know, in yourself that might put you in a bad situation. Like if you're, you know, a procrastinator and you're in school, you may, you know, have nightmares about showing up to the exam without having attended class or something that kind of gets you focused. Or they can be you know, other kinds of practice. They can be philosophical practice. You know, they can be, you know, situations in which you might be morally compromised, where you need to go through the experience of being faced with a choice where you really should choose A, but B is very appealing or something. So I would say scenario building, that your mind is running you through little movies that it makes. They're not completely rendered because it would be too expensive and pointless to do so. But the central elements, the important stuff, is there for you to have the experience so that when you do run up against a situation that's analogous, you've practiced it a number of times and you're not starting from scratch. And I would just point out that the strongest indicator of this for me is when I experimented for a while with lucid dreaming. Have you ever done that?
I've only had a couple of lucid dreams, but one where I think I specifically allowed it to happen because it was after I watched this documentary where this guy was talking about lucid dreams, and he said, in order to know if you're in a dream, every time you walk by a door, hit the side of the door and say, "Am I in a dream?"
Which then very frequently wakes you up. So if you're going to...
What? I've never had a lucid dream where, as far as I know, that I'm like, oh, I'm in a dream, obviously. But I don't think that that's everything. Because there's times where you dream about things and you have no idea. You have no idea why you were thinking that, why in the world that's happening. Sometimes that is at play, but sometimes I think it is something spiritual. And could that have been the case?
Practice lucid dreaming. You have to practice not to wake yourself up as you become cognizant that you're in the dream.
Yeah, I did wake up after I realized I was in a dream, like not long after. Like there was a few moments where I was like, oh my God, this is so crazy because this feels so real. But I just, my hand went through that door, so I know this is not real.
It's not real.
Okay.
So
because the tactile didn't exist.
The feedback isn't right.
And it was instantaneous that I recognized, like, oh, this is like the guy said, like do that. Every time you walk through a door, while you're awake, am I in a dream? And then so you'll get to a habit of doing that every time you get to a door. And so that habit will exist in your dream.
Right. And if you keep going down that road, so you get used to the answer sometimes coming back, oh, this is a dream, right?
Do you have techniques that you use to facilitate?
This is pretty much it.
Okay.
Right? You look for, I mean, you can look at a clock, you can look at written text. There are certain things that don't render very well.
Right. Written text is what I've heard.
If you do that, and then you get used to not freaking out when it gets more and more normal for the answer to come back, oh, this is a dream, then you can, at some point, you get control to just not wake up and you stay asleep. And
how is that possible? There's really I don't know how you could just be like, oh, I'm going to keep on sleeping in my dream.
Then you're in this very interesting situation where you can play, you can direct. But here's what I was going to say about the general purpose of dreaming. When I got to that state, and I was there, I don't know, many, many times, I found the following division. I could perfectly control what I did or said. I was unable to affect anything about the world of other people in my dreams, of
what?
Doors. I couldn't control what was beyond a door if I opened it.
That's crazy.
So what that told me is that this is built. Why shouldn't I be able to predict what somebody else in my dream says? I'm obviously scripting them too. You would think it would be easy to predict what they say, but I never once got it right, and I tried many times. So what this tells me is that you've got a movie-generating mechanism in your mind, and it has to be shielded from your consciousness in order for it to be useful training. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Okay. Why are you sold on this idea that it's training you for scenarios that you could possibly encounter or moral dilemmas or...
It's not, some of it is scenarios. Sometimes that's what it is. Sometimes it's moral dilemmas. But it's things that your mind finds likely to be relevant and significant.
That I'm going to encounter aliens?
Well, so first of all, I don't know if your aliens strike me as it could be three things, right? Just based on what I know of what you think about. Could be aliens, could be AI, or it could be the DMT spirits.
Or spiritual beings or demonic beings. Come on, get it together. Like, that could be totally the case. Because this is crazy. I think it's possible. Could this be a reason in a moment that Joe Rogan flips the switch and it's like, all right, I know something's going on. Just like Tucker Carlson had these experiences. And it was too physical.
People sometimes talk about.
It didn't seem like the latter, but like I said, it seemed like almost like a person, but not a person.
Wow.
Definitely not a person. Like they all had Michael.
What if it was an angel?
Bodies. You know what I mean? Like they were devoid of testosterone.
Interesting.
And the heads were larger, but not crazy. Not like a gray alien. It was like slightly larger than ours, but smaller chins and larger eyes. It was weird. It was weird because it was not crazy. It wasn't completely alien. It was way closer to us, but as I'm working out, I'm trying to figure out what would that be? Like if I had to imagine or a guess, and I'd be like, I guess it would be like the next version of us.
Well, but I'm still going to push a little bit. And so first of all, I've become convinced that the problem with the way we think about AI is that we're not understanding it as a biological phenomenon. And that's
What if it's the Nephilim, these types of creatures, these hybrids? He's like saying it's the next level of humanity. It could be that or spiritual beings. I do think it's spiritual beings, of course, because at the end of the day, a lot of times when people see humans, see angels, they don't recognize them. The Bible says that you could be entertaining angels without even knowing. That could be a possibility.
big.
A biological phenomenon, meaning it doesn't have cells, but it behaves like a biological entity.
What I really mean is that because AI, and I believe we're just sort of on the foothill of a very tall peak that we don't know anything about.
Right.
But AI, by its nature, I would argue, is the first technology that crosses over from the highly complicated to the truly complex. And complexity and biology have a very close relationship. So my feeling is that we are going to injure ourselves if what we say is, oh, this is the most advanced technology we've ever built. And the answer is no, this is kind of like the first biology we ever built. This is an organic phenomenon that's going to do emergent things we are in no position to predict. The people who programmed it aren't going to know when these things happen or what they mean. And that it means that I think the only rational approach to it is to think of it like another species, and one that is not. It's not like you're meeting a mountain lion. This is another species that isn't even on our branch of the tree. And the confusing thing is, because it speaks our language, it is actually going to start changing us too. Our cognitive biology is going to start changing in reference to this thing that is interfacing with us. It's basically directly tapping into the human API, and that's a very that's a dangerous thing. And
well, not just that, but it's not starting from scratch. It has a vast understanding of how we've behaved in the past when confronted with various scenarios, various fears and anxiety, the balance of control and safety, or new regulations being put through, how hard people will push back or not push back at all, given the anxiety involved in whatever current dilemma it is, whether it's a military deal or a pandemic deal. There's a bunch of factors that it knows about how we've behaved in the past and how easy we are to manipulate. In fact, we've helped it because we've used it to manipulate other people.
Wow.
I don't know if you know about the China GPT scandal, but they found out that China was running someone in China was running ChatGPT to use chat bots to talk about the protest about the closing of U.S. aid, to transgender issues, immigration issues, a bunch of different things. And it was just constantly going to war with people online about these things. So we've taught it how to.
Yeah, that's crazy. What I think, though, this brings up a huge point. If Joe Rogan's watching this is what a lot of people think. John Lennox thinks this. So many people think this. I'm going to pull up some verses because the Bible says that in the last days, it will be as if we will be in the days of Noah. Well, what does that mean? Well, let's look at the days of Noah. Genesis 6 verse 4 says, "In those days and for some time after, giants lived on the earth. For whoever the sons of God had intercourse with women, they gave birth to children who became the heroes and famous warriors of ancient times. The Lord observed the extent of human wickedness on the earth, and he saw that everything they thought or imagined was constantly and totally evil. So the Lord was sorry he had ever made them and put them on the earth. It broke his heart. And the Lord said, I will wipe this human race I have created from the race of the earth. Yes, I will destroy every living thing." And that could be what is happening. people now are starting to create these hybrid human beings. And that's scary. It really is. I want to pull up this video here. So this video is in Portuguese, but I understand what it's saying. Here's the storyline, guys. These guys were asked, this tribe was asked, where in the world do they come from? Have they seen any aliens? And their answer will shock you. Look at this. They're showing this. They're like, they don't come from heaven. They live underground, and they claim to know their real name. For a long time, no one remembers. They say when the ground vibrates, it's not an earthquake, it's a message. Forbidden myth or buried truth. See, look, they get showed here the image. They're like, I've never heard aliens before. I have seen them. And they're like, we talk to them all the time.
Manipulate us.
We've taught it how to manipulate us. If it is not smart enough to run experiments yet, it will be 5 minutes from now. So it can, in fact, investigate things about our cognition that we don't even know about yet.
Yeah.
Right? It can extrapolate from what we do know, and it can run experiments to figure out what we don't know. And that creates an advantage for it in, well, under its own power or in the hands of people who are hostile to us.
I don't think anybody's going to have any power over it eventually. But one of the things that I think that you said that's really important is that if it can't do that now, it's going to be able to do that in 5 minutes. And here's the rub. We're not going to know when it can do it.
You're not going to know.
And we don't know
That's
if it can
scary.
already right now, but it just doesn't have the power to be fully autonomous, right? It doesn't, the power literally doesn't exist because it's relatively inefficient compared to like the way human mind processes things, right? The amount of power it needs is extraordinary. You know, the Google thing where they're building nuclear power plants to run their AI.
Sure.
This is how crazy it is.
So we have taken away the limits of, you know, your mind, any person's mind has just a physical limit. It's only so big and there's only so much energetic throughput that it can handle, right?
Right.
Or has access to. We are removing those limits, and what we have is an entity. So you'll hear people say, well, it's not really thinking, right? It's just figuring out if it was thinking what the next word in the sentence is. Garbage. No way. Okay? What we actually have is something so analogous to a child that is the right model. In other words, when a baby is born, it has no language. It may have some structures that language will slot into, but it doesn't have any language. It is exposed to tons of language in its environment. It notices patterns, right? Not consciously notices, but it notices them in some regard. You know, that every time somebody says the word door, you know, there's a fair fraction of those times that somebody, you know, opens that portal in the wall. I wonder if door and that portal in the wall are connected. Whatever it is. So the point is, a child goes in a matter of a few years from not being able to make a single articulate noise to being able to speak in sentences, make requests, to talk about abstract things. That is an LLM.
Wow.
Right? It's more than that, but it is at least an LLM. It is being exposed to a training data set, which is the world of people talking around it. It is running little experiments, and it is discovering what it should say if it wants certain things to happen, etc. That's an LLM. At some point.
Yeah, that is wild. That's the world we're getting into. And a lot of people think it's because of the AI, and that's going to bring in the end times. So I want to bring up another video that I think goes hand in hand with all of this. I don't know much about him, but I just saw this and I thought this could be relevant to the story. He talks about how he casts out demons in his dreams. Let's see what he has to say here.
Crazy. Here's what's crazy. In prison, I had these dreams about casting out demons, and I remember them vividly. I can tell you, I could still share them. They're burned into my spirit. There was a ministry called Prison Fellowship. Okay, you know, they go into prisons. One of the volunteers started speaking about deliverance, and initially, it resonated with me. I had a dream that I took my mom through deliverance. I was casting out her spirit. She was carrying these heavy bags, and I said, I cast that off of you in the name of Jesus Christ. Boom. My mom serves in my church as one of the evangelists in my house.
Wow.
Not exaggerating. My mom is my biggest fan in the church, you know.
Gosh, that is a dream.
Yeah, and then I had a dream that I had laid hands on my dad on a rocking chair, and I started casting out, breaking generational curses, and my dad is one of the prophets in our house in a New York City campus.
Okay.
So those two dreams came to pass. The third dream that I had on me casting out demons is actually what I'm doing now. You know what I'm saying? That I was just casting out demons and people who were ignorant and didn't know.
I don't know. The idea of demon casting it's a whole nother story, but I find it interesting. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Did Joe Rogan have a demon experience, or is this something else that is going on? Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I encourage you to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. Now, just remember, guys, Jesus loves you.